Friends, good morning. I would like to make this presentation to all um, safety manager, safety engineer, and safety officers appointed in the project. These are the typical arrangement. I made this presentation to help the safety managers review their arrangement and compare. Now, just in case my presentation is lacking of some important matters in terms of managing health and safety in the project, um, just subscribe, just like and subscribe the button. Then I would like to suggest that write your comment on the comment provided below. There is a space. You can click and put your comment. Then I will make sure that in my next video, I can make a presentation to cover the items that you want me to cover. This is only for a beginner in managing health and safety in the project. Now, first, before moving forward, I would like to introduce myself. Um, my name, as indicated there, Dennis Imbandoho. I have my Master of Science in Occupational Health and Safety Management. I completed the training and examination. I passed the examination provided by National, the NFPA. The program is Certified Fire Protection Specialist. I am an approved tutor of NIBOS and ISO 45001 series of 2018. And I'm also certified grade professional. Then currently, I am the advisor of WSO Qatar, one of the advisors. Of course, with me is Orly Pernitis, the safety engineer assigned in Pearl, Qatar. And I am the current chapter president of Society of Fire Protection Engineer. I just wish that this presentation could offer some insight to safety manager, safety engineer, and safety officer on site. Now, the coverage of this presentation. The coverage of this presentation is workers' welfare, slip, trips, and fall, working at heights, crane and lifting operations, oil and gas pipeline works is also covered here for the purposes of understanding the safety arrangement, but not all of the oil and gas pipeline work. I only pick up the, I only capture the hazard and the control measures that might be provided, so that this is also, so that this presentation may also be attractive to safety managers in oil and gas, especially in the pipeline works. Part of this is also capturing scaffolding, then excavation works, and confined spaces. Now, I had taken the photograph from the Google search pertaining to workers' welfare. Now, we have so many standards regarding the workers' welfare. We have workers' welfare as mentioned and listed in the requirements of the International Labor Organization. This is a typical workers' welfare. as I visited the project under me, and I found out that there are provisions that it might be at your standard or not, but at certain point, the provision of workers' welfare, which includes the provision of potable water with the warning sign, and you will find it here beside the um, cooler. You will find a posted paper. Actually, this is the third party, a copy of the water laboratory test. The purpose of which is to ensure that whoever will visit, whoever will inspect, you don't need to go to your office to show that you had complied the water laboratory requirements. All right, and the water filter behind this also complies the Qatar, because I had taken this photograph, my friend. I had taken this photograph and I myself inspected the provision. There is a water filter here that complies the Ministry of Labor circular. That water filter is ceramic and 3 candle. Now here you will find that the table is clearly white. We make sure that the contractor complies the cleanliness requirement. So workers were provided with Dettol or this other form of disinfectant. And the moment they are going to use that, they have to use the latex hand glove to protect workers from the effects of disinfectant. So you have latex hand glove, and workers were trained to clean regularly. Otherwise, if it is not clean, then I will make the safety manager responsible to answer why it is not clean. And even the food cabinet, actually the food cabinet, the requirement is in controlled temperature. Since they enclose the eating area, I just give them the chance to run this, but at least it should be clean, free of any dust. So in the inspection time, when the worker are answering the question, had you cleaned your food cabinet, then I will check if there is an evidence on the presence of dust. I will ask the safety manager himself to open his palm, and I will slide his finger on top of it to check, because the degree of care that should be afforded to the workers should be acceptable. Workers' welfare facility still, you have the lavatory. This is also required not only in the international standard, but the Qatar construction specification also requires lavatory. And the washing liquid. Washing liquid. Here you have washing liquid. This is also a toilet. The eating area. And here you have some definitions of what is drinking water, sanitary conveniences, washing facilities, changing rooms, accommodation for clothing, resting area, and facilities. These are taken from the ILO requirements, the definition, and identify the provision strategies an organization could consider to reduce the risk of violence towards other workers, to secure their belongings, their valuables, and you can find the recommended strategies to prevent those risk of violence towards other workers. So you have collecting and analyzing incident reports so that you can follow them, you can check the trend, interviewing staff formally or informally. Then you have staff surveys, zero tolerance policy, and prosecution of offenders, security, provision of security staff. By the way, when you visit our labor accommodation, you will find that security CCTV cameras are installed, security are provided, they have patrol daytime and nighttime. So this will prevent people from roaming around, stealing other valuables of workers. So the accommodation is secured and protected, not only in terms of their um, security as in terms of their food and prevention of injuries, but also with their belongings. Now here you will identify 4 hazards that can cause slip and trips. You have the smooth surfaces are inherently slippery. These are the contamination of floors, then water presence and all. Then the prevention here, you will find create good housekeeping practices. Now, usually there is an issue of the housekeeping team. But what is required here is to make good housekeeping practice. Whether they are under the safety department or other certain department, depending on how you run it. But make sure that it is regularly clean, the workers' facility, the housekeeping on site. Then the reduce with slippery surfaces, avoid creating obstacles in aisles and walkways, create and maintain proper lighting, then wear proper shoes, control individual behavior. Slip, trips, and fall. Now, even in the scaffolding area, in the construction, once you have the gap, a long gap, a wide gap between one plank to the other, that space will cause, like this, will cause slip and trips. Now, if you are working in the mall, because we have safety officers working in the mall, we have safety officers, fire safety officers working in the hotel. Now, whenever the workers or assigned housekeepers are cleaning, assigned cleaners are cleaning the walkways, even inside offices, make sure that you have the warning to inform them that this surface is wet, to avoid people from slipping through the wet surface. Then we have here the fall, working above the floor. Then we have the hazard and associated risk, uninspected ladder, working without body, lack of training, working on ladder, lack of competent supervision, lack of information, and lack of safety induction. Then the associated risk is absenteeism or a long absence due to hospitalization, due to the injury sustained. If it involves bone fracture, take note, my friend, our workers on site, they come in different ages. There are young and there are old. There are people with vulnerable to bone fracture because of some medications that will enable their body to absorb calcium, like in the case of diabetes, I think, that the medicine will enable them to absorb more and a suitable amount of calcium. That is why we have to take good care of the older ones. By doing this, we have to be very careful in ensuring the ladder are inspected and workers are informed. So another hazards are listed here is unsuitable shoes, non-anti-slip material, that is hazard, uninspected working platform, working without body, lack of training, lack of competent supervision, lack of safety induction, lack of understanding of his rights to refuse the assigned task if it is perilous or unresolved or with unresolved hazards. So you have here fall causing head injury, comatose, payment of hospitalization until recovery, payment of blood money to victims' relatives, damage of company's reputation on the part of the employer, site closure due to investigation. Usually we have here 15 days and onwards, and jail term for manager or responsible person by not taking any action. Delay in the project completion due to litigation and court hearings. Now let's go to lifting operation. Lifting operation is an operation concerned with the lifting and lowering of the load, either moving left and right when the load is lifted. A load is in terms of items being lifted, which could include a person or people. A lifting operation may be performed manually or by using lifting equipment such as mobile crane, tower crane, crawler crane, gantry, fixed jib, and some other lifting device that may be used for lifting any type of load. In lifting operation, you have person found under the load. When the person is found under the load, that is in itself the hazard. Why? Because there is a likelihood of failure on the part of lifted load, and when it fall on the people working under or beneath or under the load, it will crush them. It will cause injury or even fatality. All right. So, person found under the load while doing the lifting operation, lack of competent supervision. We have third-party training for lifting supervisor, lack of isolation, lack of lifting permit, damage of lifting gears, uninspected lifting equipment. Now, the associated risk here is fall of material causing hospitalization, issuance of NCR or citation of penalty, fatality and payment of civil indemnity, increase of insurance premium. Of course, when the insurer found out that you have more fatalities in the year, the following year, the premium will increase. Site closure due to investigation, absenteeism or absent of personnel due to prosecution, damage of company's reputation. It will affect future project, the acquisition of future project, or maybe project which is to be awarded. The client may change as long as the contract is not yet entered, maybe, or the future project will no longer be awarded to you because you have that bad record. Then the company will be facing closure. Lifting operations, lack of planning. If you don't have lifting plan and if you don't have lifting permit, that is hazard. That means it was not properly inspected. The calculation is not properly verified. Untrained workers, lack of competent lifting supervisors, workers' presence in the line of fire. What do you mean by this number 5? Meaning, you lifted the material and the center of gravity of the material is probably, if it slips through, the material will go directly into where the people are standing. So the moment it slips through, then these guys will be in trouble. Then you have the lack of communication on the process of lifting the tank. You need to have risk assessment approved and method statement. The associated risk here are as follows: damage of property, NCR and penalty, workers get injured or sent to hospital, hospitalization cost, increase of insurance premium, damage of company's reputation, site closure due to investigation, hiring of spokesperson to protect company's interest, and the talent fee of that spokesperson. He may be the lawyer or any cautious professional that when he speak before the media, it will protect the interest of the company. But finding him, taking him on board, it will require payment of his talent. Then payment of civil indemnity, prospect projects will be affected. Now, lowering of pipe using side boom crane. You will find this in pipeline activity in the brownfield. Lack of PTW, because PTW is required Now, why without permit to work is a hazard? Because your activity is not verified. It is not inspected. The cranes involved are not even checked whether they are certified by third party, the load, or there is modification, because if there is modification, that requires another third party. Lack of PTW itself is you miss the opportunity of checking whether your equipment is remains suitable up to the time that it will be used for lifting. Now, the weather condition, if the wind speed is high, there are areas that does not, the client will refuse to issue the permit for lowering the pipe. All right. Then lack of training on the part of the operators, uninspected side boom crane, untrained flagman. When the flagman cannot give you the right signal, it will defeat the object of proper communication, and it will cause lack of coordination if the signal is not properly provided. Then lack of competent supervisor, lack of communication on the approved RAMs. So meaning, even if you have approved RAMs, no, you have approved method statement and risk assessment, but if you fail to communicate that to those team involved in lowering the pipe, the presence of method statement and risk assessment will not help. The approved method statement and risk assessment doesn't help, but you require to communicate them. All right? There is a pre-lift meeting. You might call that toolbox talk, pre-task briefing, or safety moment. Let it be. But the most important items mentioned in your method statement and risk assessment should be made known. It should be communicated at that opportunity. And the assigning of the task itself. Associated risk, if you will absorb all those hazards, you have the issuance of NCR and probably penalty. Not only up to this point, but maybe it will, if it is habitual offense, then the client may also decide to blacklist or remove or blacklist the engineer. Work stoppage, damage of pipe or failure of lifting, falling of crane into the trench. Of course, the crane, if it is overloaded beyond its capacity, if it falls into the trench, then that would be another issues, because to remove them it requires another permit. You have to go to the client, notify them, and you will be required to submit another recovery plan for the equipment falling into the trench. But the duration of investigation, the type of investigation that will be conducted by the client, that's another headache for those workers who are subject in the investigation. So, to prepare ourselves, we have to take note of these activities, because the moment you will be exposed into this, you have to make sure that all the requirements from the clients are complied. Damage of equipment, injury and hospitalization cost, payment of civil indemnity or blood money if there is one of your team die during the process. Then that we have to ensure that our arrangement will meet the requirements. Pipeline pressure testing. This is about a highly specialized service provided by the testing company. The pressure testing verifies structural integrity and strength of the pipeline by verifying its ability to withstand higher than the normal pressure without deformation, damage, or failure, or perhaps rupture at certain pressure. So, Pipe are tested to ensure that they can resist the pressure on the material that will pass through the pipeline. At certain pressure it can resist or it can withstand. Alright, so the mechanism of pipe test, you will find that you have the test head or spool. Then this is the test head welded to pipeline. Okay, then this is the hose fills pipe with water. This is where the water comes to fill the pipeline. Now here sometimes the water requires maybe 2 tanker, 3, 4, 5, up to 6 tankers maybe, or maybe 10 or 12 tankers depending on the length of the pipeline, because you need to fill that with water and lock the pressure at certain PSI, and within 24 hours or maybe 48 hours depending on the requirement of the client, from the time it was locked, to check whether there is a pressure difference, because if there is, then the contractor will be required to identify the location where the leak or where the failure, so that they have to rectify the connection, the connection of the pipe, whether there is an issue with the welded area. Now this is the test head. You will find the pressure gauge to check whether there is pressure difference. This is the lowering of the pipe, the use of suitable lifting gears to ensure that the pipe are protected. And lowering the pipe, you have weight of the material is beyond crane capacity, that is hazard. That is why the lifting permit should be issued, because the lifting engineer will verify whether the load and the capacity of the crane is suitable to lift that load without endangering the team. Here you will find a heavy load, and at the same time, you will find people near the load. Crane is not suitable for the task, it's another hazard. Crane outrigger is not fully extended, lack of lifting permit, lack of competent supervision, crane and lifting gears are not inspected, associated risk, overturning, failure of lifting operations and delay, issuance of NCR and penalty due to lack of PTW, failure of lifting resulting to crashing, causing hospitalization or fatality. Then I will end up here. I will add the second video on the same topic.